preserving this knowledge for future posterity. So let's hear what these texts have hidden. This is Jason of Arcades.com. Enjoy this presentation. There are no true beginnings on earth, for here all is effect, the ultimate cause being elsewhere. This then is how these things were told in the great book of the sons of fire. God laid his hand upon man, saying, "Now you are even as I, except you sleep. They're enclosed in matter in the kingdom of illusion, while I dwell here in the freedom of reality and truth. It is not for me to come down to you, but for you to reach me." In chapter 3 of the book of creation, called Destruction and Recreation, we read in chapter 3, verse 1, "It is known," and the story comes down from ancient times, "that there was not one creation, but two, a creation and a recreation. It is a fact known to the wise that the earth was utterly destroyed once, then reborn on a second wheel of creation." Now, in the book of Creation 3:2, we read, "At the time of the great destruction of earth, God caused a dragon from out of the heaven to come and encompass her about. The dragon was frightful to behold. It lashed its tail. It breathed hot fire and coals, and a great catastrophe was inflicted upon mankind. The body of the dragon was wreathed in a cold, bright light, and beneath, on the belly, was a bloody immortality glow, while behind it trailed a flowing tail of smoke. It spewed out cinders and hot stones, and its breath was foul and stenchful, poisoning the nostrils of men. Its passage caused great thunderings and lightnings to rend the thick darkened sky, all heaven and earth being made hot. The seas were loosened from their cradles and rose up, pouring across the land. An awful shrilling trumpeting from the sky, which outpoured even the howling of the unleashed winds. In the book of Creation 3:3, we read, "Men, stricken with terror, went mad at the awful sight of the heavens. They were loosed from their senses and dashed about, crazed, not knowing what they did. The breath was sucked out from their bodies, and they were burnt with a strange ash." Then it happened, leaving earth enwrapped within a dark and glowing mantle, which was ruddily lit up inside. The bowels of the earth were torn open in great writhing upheavals, and a howling whirlwind rent the mountains apart. The wrath of the sky monster was loosed in the head, lashed about in flaming fury, roaring like 1,000 thunders. It poured down fiery destruction amid a welter of thick black blood. So awesome was the fearfully aspected thing that the memory mercifully departed from man. His thoughts were smothered under a cloud of forgetfulness. Book of Creation 3:5. "The earth vomited forth great gusts of foul breath from awful mouths, opening up in the midst of the land. The evil breath bit at the throat before it drove men mad and killed them. Those who did not die in this manner were smothered under a cloud of red dust and ashes as they were swallowed by the yawning mouths of earth or crushed beneath crashing rocks." Now, the book of Creation 3:6, "The first sky monster was joined by another, which swallowed the tail going before, but the two could not be seen at once. The sky monster reigned and raged above the earth, doing battle to possess it, but the many-bladed sword of God cut them in pieces, and their falling bodies enlarged the land and sea." Now, Book of Creation 3:7, "In this manner the first earth was destroyed by calamity descending from out of the skies. The vaults of heaven had opened to bring forth monsters more fearsome than any that had ever haunted the dreams of men." Book of Creation 3:8, "Men and their dwelling places were gone. Only sky boulders and red earth, red mud remained where once they were, but amidst all the desolation, a few survived, for man is not easily destroyed. They crept out of the caves and came down from the mountainsides." Book of Creation 3:10, "Then the great canopy of dust and cloud, which encompassed the earth, enshrouded it in heavy darkness, it was pierced by a ruddy light, and the canopy swept down in great cloud bursts and raging storm waters. Cool moon tears were shed for the distress of earth and the woes of men." Book of Creation 3:11. When the light of the sun pierced the earth's shroud, bathing the land in its revitalizing glory, the earth again knew day and night. For there were now times of light and times of darkness. The smothering canopy rolled away, and the vaults of heaven became visible to men. Book of Creation 3:12. The rainstorms ceased to beat upon the faces of the land, and the waters stilled their turmoil. Earthquakes no longer tore the earth open, nor was it burned and buried by hot rocks. The land masses were reestablished in stability and solidity, standing firm in the midst of the surrounding waters. The oceans fell back to their assigned places, and the land stood upon its foundations. Life was renewed, but it was different. Man survived, but he was not the same. Man stood in the midst of renewal and regeneration. He looked up into the heavens above in fear for the awful powers of destruction lurking there. Henceforth, the placid skies would hold a terrifying secret. When men came forth from their hiding places and refuges, the world their fathers had known was gone forever. The face of the land was changed. The earth was littered with rocks and stones, which had fallen when the structure of heaven collapsed. One generation groped in the desolation and gloom, and as the thick darkness was dispelled, its children believed they were witnessing a new creation. Time passed, memory dimmed, and the record of events was no longer clear. Generation followed generation, and as the ages unfolded, new tongues and new tales replaced the old. The Book of Creation 4:3. There were some who struggled harder. More were disciplined because their forefathers had crossed the great dark void. Their desires were turned to Godward, and they were called the children of God. Book of Creation 4:4. Their country was undulating and forested. It was fertile, having many rivers and marshes. There were great mountains to the east and to the west, and to the north was a vast stony plain. This describes ancient North America between the Rockies and Appalachians. Book of Creation 4:5. Then came the day when all things became still and apprehensive, for God caused a sign to appear in the heavens so that men should know the earth would be afflicted, and the sign was a strange star. Book of Creation 4:6. The star grew and waxed to a great brightness and was awesome to behold. It put forth horns and sang, being unlike any ever seen. So men, seeing it, said to themselves, surely this is God appearing in the heavens above us. But the star was not God, though it was directed by his design. But the people had not the wisdom to understand it. No, Phoenix is said in the Nag Hammadi text to be from God, a weapon against the rulers of this world. Phoenix always appears as a red star in the heavens before it gets huge and fills up the sky looking like a red dragon. Now, Book of Creation 4:8. Such was the likeness and manifestation of God in those days. Awesome was his countenance, terrible his voice of wrath. The sun and moon hid themselves in fear, and there was a heavy darkness over the face of the earth. Remember the Genesis text in the very beginning. This is what this is describing. Genesis says, and darkness covered the face of the deep. Now, Book of Creation 4:9. Great fires and smoke rose up from the ground, and men gasped for air. The land was rent asunder and swept clean by a mighty deluge of waters. A hole opened up in the middle of the land. The waters entered and it sank beneath the seas. Book of Creation 4:10. The mountains of the east and west were split apart and stood up in the midst of the waters, which raged about. The northland tilted and turned over on its side. Now, what is being described here is the 3895 BC lithospheric displacement.
I keep a photograph in which we were in love, caught in your eyes, waiting for the sunrise. I barely even knew who you were. What did you do? I didn't care, 'cause you were perfect, I swear.